Good morning. Good morning. This is Doing Relationships Right. I'm Jennifer Hurvitz and I'm your host. Boy, I need to take a deep breath. You guys, I'm just buckle up. Buckle up, buttercups, because I'm jumping right in. No one needs to hear the spiel. No one needs to talk about everything because I have someone here today who you all are going to be turning up your knobs and whatever you got going on, taking notes. Paul Keable is here. If you don't know who Paul Keable is, I'm going to tell you he's the Chief Strategy Officer for, are you ready? Ashley Madison. If you don't know what Ashley Madison is, by now, you're probably either living under a rock or I think, Paul, do you think everybody knows what you are, who you are, what the deal is?
I don't think everybody knows yet, but I'm working on it.
Because I think this might help, this
Oh,
podcast. Okay, I've got lots and lots of questions, but Paul, first of all, I have questions for you specifically. How did this start? How did you get interested in being in this? Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Ashley Madison. I'm going to do like a pre-recorded thing to talk about it all, but when monogamy becomes monotony.
so that was actually our original tagline
Mhm.
way back in 2002.
Okay, it's
And
not anymore.
while no, it's not. It was a really great encapsulation of what our brand really was about. But as you say it's a bit of a mouthful sometimes. And
Yeah.
so we now go, boy, life is short, have an affair.
Okay. My listeners are like, Jennifer, what are you doing? This is Doing Relationships Right. And this is, and people are saying, they're saying to me right now, I can hear them saying, my listeners going, this is not doing relationships right. Explain to me how it is.
Okay, so actually, this is very much well within, your sphere of influence because as well as being the world's largest married dating service, we're also the world's largest marriage counseling service. Because if you don't want your partner on Ashley Madison, you have to listen to me as to why people are actually coming to the site to avoid those pitfalls in your relationship.
I never thought about that. But I feel like the married dating space isn't, it's to most people, it's an oxymoron, right? Like married dating, but people who are, I guess the word is it's consenting, right? People who are consenting about, explain what you think, give me the spiel, give it to me.
Absolutely. Listen, we're exactly what you think we are. We're in the business of helping people have what we like to think of as a better affair, a more discreet affair. Because listen, you can shut my business down today and no affairs are going to be stopped, quite frankly. They're
Okay.
just going to happen in the more traditional sense. So while there are certainly competitors that have, um, tried to play in the space that Ashley Madison does, our one and only true competitor is the workplace, because that is where traditionally most affairs have taken place. You spend the vast majority of your time there, and if you're, sales or marketing, you might be doing a lot of travel, a lot of late nights, possibly weekend work, and this is where it happens. And what's changed dramatically over the past 10 or so years is we are starting to see companies say, hold on, where in the past, quite often the more junior and would have been more likely than not a female individual getting caught in a workplace affair with a married person, that woman would face the consequences and she would lose her job. Whereas now we are seeing both individuals losing their job. And again, we're talking solely about consensual affairs. And we've seen CEOs at Intel, at Donald's. We've seen Bill Gates lose his position at his own foundation for a consensual workplace affair. So what we believe is workplace affairs are not safe for work. And so, what we're in the space of is helping people have discrete affairs. And as well, for people who are a little bit further more involved from a monogamy standpoint, are looking for a non-monogamous relationship, which their partner is aware of, but they still might be interested in, some discretion. Because listen, if you're a 30-year-old, 40-year-old person married with kids, you don't want your colleagues, your friends, or your family knowing about, where your new interests are. And we roughly have about 20% of our membership who would identify as disclosed non-monogamous, meaning their partner is
Oh,
aware at
interesting
some level,
that they are
of their
aware.
activities, but they want discretion.
Okay.
And that's what we offer. And it allows people to sort of explore that space, dip their toe in and find out, is this what I'm really looking for?
Okay. So back in the day, you can stop me if I'm wrong, but back in the day, I had a couple girlfriends when the whole Ashley Madison thing went down. I have to just ask, and everything was leaked, right? Whose husbands, that's how they found out that they were on Ashley Madison and they ended up getting divorced. How are people, are they safe? Now, like, is that going to happen again?
So, it's a great question. And I get this quite a bit. I think we're a little bit over 9 years, more than 9 years since, the events of 2015. And at that point in time, we really looked at ourselves internally and said, what kind of company do we want to be, or can we be, like, frankly? And if you listened externally, every talking head, every pundit said, this is the end of our business. And I understand that position. But what they didn't know is at that time, during the worst moments of 2015, our membership was exploding. We had well over 100,000 people joining a day. Revenue was up double-digit % during those really bad moments. And so that told me, listen, we have work to do. We've got to repair some of the trust that we've lost with our membership. We've got to do a lot of different things to manage, how we come back to the market. And listen, it wasn't easy, but over the past 9+ years, we have invested millions in our security. We have come at it from a whole new approach, with the idea that security and privacy are embedded into every aspect of our business, not just, the teams that are literally responsible for that. We have that. But on top of that, our mentality has shifted to where it's every single person's role at Ashley Madison to think about security and privacy as relates to every new feature, function of our service, so that people can trust us. And with hundreds of thousands of people joining a month, millions every year, clearly we've done a
Something
pretty
right.
darn good job. Yeah, I think so.
You're doing something right. I mean, honestly, because I'm reading your stats and I'm doing my research, and I'm like, holy shit. Like, this is not something that people are, this is, whether they're telling their friends or they're not, people are using it, right? I mean,
correct.
So bravo, I think, maybe. Yes. I have to switch my mindset, maybe. I don't know, but it's such a personal thing, right?
Completely is.
I do have questions. Okay. So let's say somebody is single, looking for a throuple, or they want is that your deal too, or no? Or single?
So at the core of our site is, like I said before, discretion.
Okay.
To give people the ability to explore a variety of spaces. Our target audience primarily is in the space of married dating. Now, that could be disclosed non-monogamy or undisclosed non-monogamy. But within that framework, discretion is a very attractive feature for a lot of different people for a variety of reasons. Yeah. And so we have couples who come to our site and they're looking for their unicorn to join them. So we certainly have that functionality. Right. Absolutely. And sometimes we have single and divorced people who, very busy career-wise, they're looking for a connection that doesn't have that relationship escalator.
Right.
And is sometimes difficult to find, particularly, our age category is probably a little bit older than the typical online dating app, where a lot of that is Gen Z. Now, we still have a lot of influx from that group, but our core constituency is probably 30+. Gotcha. And, there are singles within there that, again, they want to undertake discrete activities. They don't want necessarily all the relationship escalators, as I said before, to come into this, but they still want to connect with a person on a physical level. And our site really allows them to do that, and in a manner that not the whole world has to see what they've chosen to undertake. Right.
Okay, so on like a normal site, I shouldn't say it's not normal, but on your boring
traditional site.
Thank you. I'm like searching for the word. I'm like, it's not normal. Traditional site, you have all those like checks and boxes, because I date for my clients all the time. I get on there and I'm like, oh, is that how? I mean, I didn't go on national. I didn't. Whatever. Is that how it works with you? Like, what do you?
So yeah, the interface is very, very similar to what you would see on most traditional dating apps. Obviously, we have some highlight buttons that allow you to indicate the types of interests that you might have that you might not find on a typical traditional dating site. But at the end of the day, what you're looking for when it comes to particularly married dating, infidelity, is location. So you want something close, but not too close.
Absolutely.
Oftentimes, we believe in the idea of mutually assured destruction, because that is the best format for an affair, which means if I'm married, I want to have an affair with someone else who's also married, because they both have the same amount of risk, and both of us are going to act in a way to limit the likelihood of this being exposed.
Sure.
And then you grow from there. So that's our base constituency, and then we grow and expand based on people's comfort level and interests beyond that. So you can put all sorts of different indications in there. And what's interesting about our site is, you're not going to log on and see a lot of face profiles on your Discover page, because quite frankly, if you're having or looking to have an affair, you're not going to put your face as your profile. Right. So there's a lot of different images that you might see, but what we allow our members to do is have a private locker of images that I can then release my key to you. and then you can see a more intimate look at me, but I control that access, so I can remove that from you at any point in time. Whether we decide to go forward with something more personal, and if we choose not to, I can remove that key. And obviously, you can't screen capture the images. So all those discretionary aspects have been built into the app for that very express purpose.
I'm just like, yeah, that's just my brain. I have to wrap my brain around it. But is it different for men than for women? Like, is the women vet? Like, do you vet them? Do you vet them? How does it? Tell me.
So this experience is very much the same for men and women.
Okay.
Obviously, the one thing that I think is different, not so much from the gender perspective, but different from traditional dating app, is on our side, I have found, and I'm someone who's been online dating the past few years myself, is that our daters are far more honest than on a traditional site. And it's not for the reason people think. The reason is, if you're on a traditional site, Match, eHarmony, Tinder, whatnot, you're usually presenting your very best self because you're looking more often than not, but not necessarily, for a life mate, a longer term relationship for a lot of daters.
Right.
And so you're presenting your absolute best self. I'm not saying you're lying, but you're putting your absolute best out there to attract the best quality mate you might potentially find. Whereas the people who come to Ashley Madison, they're often looking for a very specific thing that is missing in their primary relationship. And so they're not presenting this perfect life. They're very much out there. This is what I'm looking for. It fits in a very tiny little box that I want to contain in here. And if it doesn't match your needs, totally cool. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to try to work around that, because that's not what I'm looking for. It's not what you're looking for. And people really self-identify in a more honest, transparent way, because they don't want to waste time pretending to be something they're not, because then they're not getting what they already don't have.
Right. Well, yeah, right. Right. Yeah, I never thought of it that way, because seriously, what are they going to, I mean, they don't want to go through all the shit if they can just get exactly what they want, right? Like niche it down.
Yeah. And then you really start to look at, why are women on the site and why are men on the site? Because everybody has a, thought, and it's often portrayed by what Hollywood tells us or religion tells us as to why people cheat, particularly why men cheat, why women cheat. And so it's fascinating to me is we actually had a researcher come to us out of the University of Missouri, and Dr. Alicia Walker wanted to study, the rationale and the reasons for infidelity between the genders. And it's very hard to actually study that, because if you do Gen Pop research and surveys, people lie. They lie to themselves. So if you're going to ask somebody in a Gen Pop survey, are you cheating on your spouse? They're not going to be truthful, because that's a risk factor. That's insane. Why would you do that? But if you've already signed up to Ashley Madison, you've indicated that I'm a likely cheater. So she came to us and we said, hey, this is fascinating. We let her do the study. We didn't pay for the study. This was independent of us. And her findings were fascinating, because it really flipped the script in terms of what we believe. Women, 80% of the women on Ashley Madison in this survey came to Ashley Madison because they were in a sexless or orgasmless marriage.
I mean, yeah.
They were outsourcing their sexual requirements to Ashley Madison. And what's fascinating about that is that so many people don't want to believe that, based on a misogynistic view of life, that women don't have agency or interest in sexual activities beyond, the simple, right? And guess what, guys? Women really like sex, but here's the key thing to it. They like good sex.
That's true.
And so
I'm thinking about it. I'm like, I like good sex. Yeah.
Exactly. Everyone likes good sex.
Well, yeah, right.
But what's fascinating on the flip side, so everybody thinks men are just high libido cheaters and they're just looking to have sex with everything that moves. What's interesting is her study found that the majority of the men were seeking emotional validation. They weren't looking specifically for a physical manifestation. But that said, it often, ended up in that sphere, because through the physical act, they were able to acquire the emotional validation they're missing. And to put that in layman's terms, men are often told we have to be stoic, boys don't cry. This kind of thinking is still very pervasive in Western culture. And so the outcome often is that women don't compliment men. They don't say, hey, that shirt looks nice to you. That haircut looks fantastic to you. I really like your eyes. So those, aesthetic oriented comments that men always make towards women are not reciprocal. And I'll tell you something, and women who are listening to this, tell your man, you really like that shirt he's wearing. You watch how often he wears that shirt over the next 6 months. You're going to see it come in the rotation a lot more, because we hold on to those compliments because they're so far and few between.
Right.
And so this is often why men are stepping out on their marriages. It isn't simply because they're just horny, want to have sex with everything that moves. It's because they're missing something very much to their core.
Well, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, research shows that people cheat because they're missing something in their relationship, right? We know that. It's everybody. But my thing is like, why before hopping on like Ashley Madison, why I would like guys to talk to each other and like try. You see what I'm saying? Like, but here's what I can't really get is that like a lot of people don't. Like a lot of people would just rather go on Ashley Madison. Is that like the easy way out? Or push, please.
I think most of our members, when I speak with them, over the years, they have told me they do have that conversation with their partner. They do make those requests, and it's oftentimes it even ends in therapy. And what I've heard more often than not is that their partners are either unable to or unwilling to make the changes necessary to fulfill those needs. And that is the part that people don't comprehend. And this is the issue. People say, well, why bother getting married if you're just going to cheat? Well, here's what I say to that. One, that's a naive outlook because it's often portrayed from people who've never had problems in their marriage or are blind to them or have not been married. Right. If you're in a 15-year marriage, you love your partner, everything's fantastic. But, again, your sex life is bad. You're not achieving orgasm or you're not having the frequency with which you'd like. And you have the conversation with your partner and you say, husband, I'd like to have more sex. I'd like to do these very specific acts. And your husband says no, or is unable to. So do you just compromise and not have it? That sounds horrible. Do you go through divorce? Well, wait a minute. I love this man. I want to be with him. Everything about our life's amazing. Our kids are amazing. I don't want to leave him, but I'm unwilling to, not have this. So what do I do? And now we're suddenly a third path that gives them that option through discretion so that they can go back. And what's fascinating, I've heard this line literally many times from women. I'm a better mother, lover, and wife because of my affair.
Interesting. I mean, I know that if I guess my question is, so if they get caught, whoever it is, like, there's no, I think to myself, like, my boyfriend would kill me. He would kill me.
I hope that's not true.
Well, no, I mean, he wouldn't really kill me, but I mean, he would.
So I think he'd be upset.
Yeah.
He'd be sad. He'd be hurt. And here's the thing that I've noticed in my own personal world is that if you are around long enough, you'll have people within your friend and social circles who either have committed adultery or have experienced adultery in the relationship. And it doesn't always end up in the dissolution of the relationship.
I agree, 100%. And I think a lot more people are actually cheating. They're just not talking. So you go to dinner with your friends and you're like, oh, I had this. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you're totally right. I think that that's spot on. That is spot on. It's just so interesting to me, the whole thing. Okay, I have another question. So it's the same for men and for women. Is it gay, straight, everything? It doesn't matter?
Absolutely. So we have same sex on the platform. We've had it like as long as I can remember. We've always had that capacity. And, it's very much member-centric built so that we give you as much control over your profile in terms of who can see it, where they can be seen, who can message you. And what it really allows for is people to explore the world of non-monogamy in a variety of ways. Because like I said, I'll give you a great example of a type of affair that most people don't really consider when they chastise us and chastise adultery as a concept. There's this idea called the compassionate affair. And we have this member, she's a great example of it. She is a highly educated woman. She's a lawyer. She's practicing. And she was in her late 50s when she joined Ashley Madison because she had married an older man. He's about 10, 15 years older. And unfortunately, he fell into early onset Alzheimer's. Oh. And she ostensibly became his caretaker. And she loved this man deeply. And she had no desire whatsoever to leave him or give it up, but she was still a very vibrant woman. And her needs weren't being met. Now, she couldn't go on a traditional dating site because of her stature in the community. She was a well-known person within her field of work and in her city. And her options were rather limited. And then, of course, she heard about us. She went on and she met this wonderful man. And they've been having a years-long affair at the time when I spoke with her. And it really allowed her to go back and be an even better caretaker because all her needs were being met. The level of stress was reduced in her world because, quite frankly, she would go and spend all day with the person. And if you've ever dealt with someone in the throes of dementia, it's incredibly difficult. And then you add in the fact that that's your spouse, you are grieving your marriage every single day for the rest of your life, in a sense, and there's no outlet for that. And so, is she having an affair? Unambiguously. Does the constraints of religion and society allow for that? No. But what they say is like, just deal with it, and that's unfair to us.
Yeah,
and so that's just one example of
I like
the
that
types
example.
of affairs.
I do.
Well, sure.
I like it
Because it
I
makes
feel
you
like
feel a little bit better.
Yeah, a little bit better. I do. I'm like sitting here going, that's an, I think you're right. I think that like that story really does open a whole other point of view, right? Because it's not just about cheating on your spouse. It's about actually like taking care of yourself and self-care, and especially if your spouse is sick and can't, like I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, wait a minute.
But then again, I also have people come on for the very reasons you do think they're there for. Some people just, monogamy doesn't work for them, and they're trying to expand their portfolio of activities. But what I'll tell you is that, again, they're very honest on the site about who they are, what they're trying to accomplish. And so the game playing is a lot more limited compared to what you might find in a traditional dating app.
Yeah. Because I'm telling you, on a traditional dating app, you may actually find someone who's non-monogamous that you don't even, you know what I'm saying? Like,
oh gosh. I mean, we've seen reports that up to 30% of some traditional dating apps members are in fact married, pretending to be single.
No.
And we've heard that story. We're like, come to us. We're literally designed just for that. And there's women looking for that, and men looking for that. You don't need to pretend, and that's a level of stress I can't even contemplate.
Oh. But you know what? That is true. Like, I feel like there are sites for everybody, right? Like there's positive match, positive whatever for herpes, if everyone has herpes. Yeah. So it's like, you don't have to disclose it. You have to be like, hey, I have herpes. You actually, know that you're going to get someone that is fine with it. You see what I'm saying? I get it.
Exactly. And this is why I think is one of the reasons I think we've continued to stand to be as successful as we are, for 20 plus years.
And you have like 4 million, right? 4 million, 4.4 something.
Right. We've had 85 million members join since we launched.
Stop it.
We have about 4 million a year join.
4 million a year?
4 or 5 million a year
with
join.
You guys. Wait a minute. I can't believe it. Do you guys want to look? You can sponsor my podcast. I cannot believe that. Wait a minute. Okay. That's globally too, right?
That is globally. But the U.S. is our largest market by leaps and bounds. Just no surprise for you.
Yeah, no. But is it a lot of money?
No. So the way our system works is a little different than most traditional dating apps. So we don't have a monthly subscription for your primary access. So what you do is you buy credits to message a person. And what's interesting is I buy a package of credits on message you, Jennifer. If you responded, our conversation could be free going forward on the site.
Cool.
Now, there's added features where I can put my message at the top of your inbox and other elements to add to the experience and to give you a better chance at standing out. But the core basic credit system allows a man to buy his package credits, and for whatever reason, if you and I connected and we made an amazing, relationship, I could go on and have that affair, whether it was for a weekend or 6 months or a year. But then I come back, all my remaining credits are still there. So then I can rejoin the experience. I didn't have to have that monthly subscription keep going.
Oh, that's nice. And then do you have to, let's say you meet someone that you want to be with and you hang out, do you go off the apps, or do you shut it down, or does it stay?
Well, you can hide your, like a traditional date, you can hide your profile. Gotcha. Exactly. And you can pause that, and that way you're not getting messages and missed opportunities based on someone thinking you're there when you're not really there. So you can hide that profile. And again, you go through that motions. And again, some people have years-long affair. Some people have a weekend-long affair because that's what they wanted.
That's what they want.
And then they come back to the site and find their next experience.
Do you find people cheating? I don't want to say cheating because I guess it's not, but doubling up or being with someone while they're let's say they find someone and then they're cheating on them with another person on this. You see what I'm saying? So
yeah, absolutely. People will have multiple partners, and more often than not, they'll disclose their types of activities, but I can't, we don't monitor for that, obviously. But, what I've heard from people, some people say they're monogamously, committing adultery. So they only want to have one affair partner. And some people are like, I want to have as many experiences with multiple people, sometimes group play, and all those variety of activities. Because sometimes you find people, maybe you get married young and you have kids, and then suddenly you hit your 40s and you're like, I missed out on a lot of things. And you start to see a lot of activities out there that maybe you were unaware of.
Sure.
let's be honest, in Western culture, sex education is not exactly great, particularly for women.
Right.
And you decide, hey, wait a minute, this was a missed opportunity. I want to explore. And there's actually a great memoir. I think her name was Molly Winter, that came out earlier this spring, and very similar story that I was talking about. She was married with children, 40 plus years old. She wanted to explore non-monogamy, so she talked to her partner. But obviously, she was an established writer. She had a career. She had family. She had friends. She didn't want everyone to know about all this stuff, at least all the time. And
Right.
so she joined Ashley Madison for that express purpose, because again, the discretion allowed for her to explore that space. And I do encourage people to read the memoir to sort of see how that story goes.
Yeah.
But I hear about this quite a bit from women that, they're told a story about get married, you have kids, or you have a career, and it's married happily ever after. But we forget that,
Yeah.
if you get married in your 20s, even in your early 30s, that's a really long life to live.
Yeah.
And if you haven't had a lot of different experiences that interest you, and your partner says, I'm not willing to do those things, you sometimes have potentially regrets. And so we offer an opportunity for people to explore those spaces in a way that is a little bit more, covered and discreet.
I mean, it makes sense. It all makes sense to me. I'm sitting here going, yeah, this makes sense. I mean, I can tell. I mean, I have clients that are exactly in that situation, or I was in that situation. I've written 3 books about it, right?
So,
But I guess, like, if I would have gone to my husband, if I would have gone to my husband at the time, and I would have said, no, look at, like, I want to, I don't, I mean, I never even thought about it. Like,
yeah.
maybe I should have. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, here's the other interesting part about, what we don't think about is when we stand at the altar and promise, to be faithful forevermore. We all agree that if I go sleep with somebody else, have sex with them, that's committing adultery. That's easy. But did you sit down with your husband and say, if you go to a strip club, that's cheating. If I watch pornography, that's cheating. If you masturbate without me, that's cheating. People don't sit down and define what, in fact, their view of monogamy actually is. We all agree you can't go sleep with somebody else.
Right.
Great. That's
But
easy.
I feel like you should talk about that stuff, right?
You should 100%. So
Well,
we
yeah.
actually work with a woman named Dr. Tammy Nelson. She's a sex and marriage therapist. And she has this great concept called a monogamy contract. And she, recommends that you renew a monogamy contract every 5 years in your relationship, marriage or otherwise.
Ooh, awesome.
And what it basically says is, this is what monogamy means to me right now. Because in your 20s, you have a very narrow view of it.
Sure.
But as your life grows and your experiences grow and your interests grow, that might change, and you need to negotiate that. Because here's the thing that people don't grasp. Again, part of our business model is meant to address this. If your partner suddenly turns to you and says, hey, listen, Jennifer, this is an amazing relationship. You're an awesome woman. I love being with you, but I'm done having sex. I'm 55 years old. I don't want to have sex anymore. You're going to be like, whoa, 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 back up. And he's like, no, you got to respect that, right? And you do. You have to respect your partner. You can't force it. You can't make them do something.
Right.
But at the same time, you're like, you've made a decision for the both of us that I have no say in. And while I will respect it and must respect it, it leaves me bereft potentially. And now what are my pathways? Again, you might not want to leave that person. You may love that individual, at the most deepest part of your persona. But if sex to you is really, really still important, you're left alone. And you should be having that negotiation. Great. We don't have sex anymore, but I'm allowed to do these things in this framework. You discuss it and negotiate. And I would advocate for that. But I think most people are afraid of that conversation.
I absolutely agree with you. They're scared shitless to have it because they don't want it. It's what they don't want to hear, maybe. You know what I'm saying? Like,
you weren't enough. You couldn't
Right.
do the things I wanted.
Right.
You weren't, the perfect person. Guess what? Nobody's a perfect person. Perfect doesn't exist.
So glad you said that. No, it doesn't. It's really crazy to me because I always felt really guilty when I got divorced because I felt like I was in a sexless, loveless marriage. And I always thought like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm putting sex before my children or sex before my, do you see what I'm saying? I had this horrible guilt, full transparency. And then I got over it. I was like, you know what? I can't go. I was 40 years old. I'm like, I'm not going to go the rest of my life without sex. So I'm either going to get divorced or you're right. Like, I never even thought about like, at that point, 15 years after.
That's like we're trying to offer a pathway to people who, are in stuck between a rock and a hard place in essence. When you love your partner, and sometimes not all marriages are meant to last forever. And that doesn't mean it's a bad thing. But sometimes you do love your partner, like passionately, deeply, and you have no desire to leave the situation. despite the challenges, but you're also unwilling to live in a sexless marriage. So that compromise suddenly becomes very, very difficult. And so we're just trying to offer people a different way out of that situation.
I mean, it makes sense. It really does.
It
I'm
makes
glad you're
sense,
here
but
today.
again, we're up against, a lot of naysayers and negativity because people don't want to address this concept. They don't want to really understand it. And we believe in, it's just for better or worse. Well,
Yeah.
hold on. Like, great that we wrote some vows hundreds of years ago, but we didn't quite live to 80 and 90
True.
back then.
Sure.
And this idea that I'm going to live 30 years sleeping beside someone who's never going to touch me, who's never going to provide the physical comforts that I desire, that's a horrible, daunting life to live, I think.
It is. Okay, I got a question from a listener who, I don't know if I believe this, but I think maybe, I mean, why would she lie? But she said that at her workplace, they do background checks and they also check if the new hires are on Ashley Madison. Is that possible?
Well, they'll be checking against publicly available data from what happened in 2015. So that would be very old data.
Sure.
And what people need to remember about that information is that prior to 2015, we did not verify emails. So just because you see somebody's email associated with that information has no authenticity.
Someone could be using someone else's email.
Right. Could have been a typo, could have been a million different reasons. But just because someone reports that email was associated with an account prior to 2015, that's not a confirmation of anything whatsoever.
See, it's so interesting. Like, I feel like people they think they know, but they don't.
Yeah, I feel like people love to jump to conclusions. And this is the other part. Even if you could confirm that someone did have an account, now, then, otherwise, you have no idea what's going on in that individual's relationship.
Right.
You have no idea what conversations that person has had with their spouse or partner. And you're going to leap to some unbelievable conclusions. They may have agreed that is okay so long as they kept it discreet.
Yes.
They may have a don't ask, don't tell policy. There's a million reasons as to why somebody might have an Ashley Madison account that have nothing to do with what you think. And quite frankly, it's none of your damn business. No employer should be looking at that information. It has no bearing on anything whatsoever. We're a Canadian company. I'm in Canada, and we had a prime minister many, many moons ago who had said the state has no business in the bedrooms of its citizens. And I firmly believe that.
I do too. I completely agree. I love Canada, by the way. I just want to say I went to camp in Toronto.
Which what?
Tamaqua.
There you go.
Yeah. So we'll give a little shout out to you guys. Okay, one more question. Can I give you a couple more questions?
You can give me all the questions you
Can
like.
you search for a specific person somebody wanted to know?
No, absolutely not.
I mean, duh. Doesn't that seem like a duh?
Yeah. No, listen, like I said, we go back to we've talked about the upfront. This is about discretion and privacy. So, unless you put your name as your profile, which most people are not going to do,
right?
There's no way. It's based on your geography more. Like you can search other cities to see who's available.
Sure.
But, again, you're just going to get a list of whose profiles are available and logged in there. Okay. You can't search for, Jennifer Hurvitz or Paul
Could you imagine?
Keable.
So
you can do an age range. You can do like brunette and blonde, like a lot of the aesthetic things, based on your desires and interests. But to get to an individual would be impossible.
I like to hear that because I feel like that should be very, you don't want to image it. So specific, okay, the male to female ratio. Do you feel like there's
It's an interesting question. So coming out of 2015 in particular, there was a lot of debate and doubts about the veracity of things. And so in fact, we brought in Ernst & Young in 2018 to audit our membership. And let me tell you, you don't bring in Ernst & Young because you're having a fun day at work. That's a pain in the ass. They're going to look at every single function of your business. They're going to crawl under every rock. And that's what I hired them to do, quite frankly. And they put out a public report. Anybody can look at it. It's on our website. And they looked at everyone who signed up in 2017 and the ratio of active paid males, because you need to buy credits to send messages to women, and active females at that time was 1.13 females for every one male.
Oh, really?
Yes.
See what I'm saying? People don't get it. People just, I'm telling you, for whether it was a documentary or whether it's like just got a bad rap. Look, I mean, I think this is really good that you're doing this because I don't think people get it.
No, they don't. And here's the thing, I fundamentally believe this, that in Western culture, there is a deep-rooted misogyny that obviously against women, that says, they don't have, the sexual desires of men. And like, listen, this isn't new information. Guy sleeps with 10 women, stud. Girl sleeps with 3 guys, slut. And it's ridiculous. And the good thing is that we are moving along to a better place. We're nowhere near where we should be, but we are a little bit better. Because we're at a point now where premarital sex is kind of expected. The idea of marrying a virgin is not exactly, mainstream any longer.
Yeah, sure.
There's certain constituencies that look at that. But I think that's well past the prime. But the idea, we're still at a point where people ask ridiculous questions like body count, as if that makes a difference, right? Like, who gives a shit?
Oh my God, I cannot even deal with that. I actually have a
And so
client right now
people
that's
just don't want to
dealing with that.
believe. People don't want to believe that women have sexual desires, that they have sexual interests that go beyond, pull my nightie down when you're done.
Right.
They want more. They want variety.
Right.
And as I said, the baseline, they want good sex.
Absolutely.
And whatever good sex is how they define it. And men, listen to me when I tell you this. Ask your woman what she wants. Ask her what makes her go. And she doesn't know, which unfortunately actually is not an uncommon thing. Because again, we don't educate our kids and our teenagers about sex in any capacity. It's terrifying. And like I heard it, like Rachel Bilson, famous actress, gorgeous, stunning woman, 30 years old when she had her first orgasm from sex. And she was on a podcast a year or two ago talking about this. And so think about it. There's this woman who is Hollywood elite. She's 30.
I would kill myself.
And so there's lots of women out there who have no idea. Like you'll ask your younger girlfriends and they'll say, did you have an orgasm? I think so. Trust me, no one who's ever had an orgasm has ever said, I think so.
I think so. Right. I'm not sure. Right. It's
I'm
funny
not
because
sure.
right, my kids are 22. I have 2 boys. And I swear to God, my ex-husband's like, how do they come to you for, everything we talk about, everything. And it's just interesting to me because I don't feel that old, but like they kind of like, they just get it,
Well, you're very young to have two like 20-year-old, like, I don't know how you had babies when you're only 30 now, but good for you.
Thank you, Vinny. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I have 2 boys as well. So
do you?
I'm a big believer in this, and it's a strange thing to say, but we need sex education that goes beyond, anti-pregnancy, anti-STD. That's great. Now we are evolved to, consent as a concept, which is amazing, but we're still afraid to talk about good sex.
That makes me sad.
That it is sad. Think about it. If you have a son or a daughter, do you not want them to have good sex in their relationships?
100%.
Well, how do you think they're going to have it? Well, if you let them default pornography, which the vast majority of teenagers do,
absolutely,
males, that's not a good way to learn about sex. It's fun and entertaining, don't get me wrong, but it's not a good way to learn about sex.
I actually had to tell my boys that it wasn't because they were young and they were coming to me and they're like, "What?" I'm like, "No. Let's
don't do any of those things."
Yeah, no, none of that. No one likes that. I know. I totally agree with you. I loved having you here because I think that this is like, for my listeners, they're all going to be like, I can't believe you did this. I can't believe, look at, you know what? Fuck them. I think this is great. I just think that this is good. Also, another thing too, that I wanted to ask you, well, not ask you, but share with you, is that a lot of people feel like you can't be in a monogamous, help me here, in a monogamous marital affair. But you can't.
Well,
ethical non-monogamy doesn't mean that right?
So we don't use the term ethical non-monogamy simply because it casts a blame and shame on our other constituencies. So we regularly use the terms disclosed non-monogamy and undisclosed non-monogamy. And because again, you don't really know all the circumstances behind the scenes of what's going on in a relationship. But if you are in an undisclosed non-monogamous relationship, meaning I'm sleeping with a woman that my partner doesn't know about, I might only want one other partner for a variety of reasons. And I might say to her, I only want to sleep with you, and I only want you to sleep with me. And that's part of that conversation. That dynamic is certainly other. It might seem strange to people, but, sex is not always logical. It doesn't follow a linear path because a strong, confident woman might want to be submissive in the bedroom. We often see and this was, I think, shown in that show, not Succession, but Billions. I think that was
Oh
the
yeah,
other
yeah,
one.
yeah, yeah. Billions.
Paul Giamatti's character, he was a super successful billionaire guy, master of corporate titans, but he, was a cuckold. He wanted his wife to go out and humiliate him by sleeping with other men. And this is often something we hear about, because when you're the big decision maker outside in the world, sometimes you want to submit to something else. You want to be taken down a notch, because in the outside world, all that pressure and burden is placed upon you, and you're the ultimate decision maker. So you want to give that all up and give that away. And that dynamic can be found in a variety of spaces.
And I think also a lot of times people like they go and they tell their husband or their spouse or their mate, like I really am into this. And then they're like, oh my God, I would never, I'm not going to do that. And then you feel embarrassed. And then like I have clients who are like, well, I'm not going to bring it up again because he said no, or I'm not going to talk about it, because she said gross. And it's like, I feel like, if someone's not going to meet you where you're at, now you have options.
There's a great concept. Don't yuck somebody else's yum.
Yes.
It may not be your thing.
Right.
It may not be your thing. That's okay. Listen, if you want to have a really strong, healthy sexual relationship with somebody, you should have the capacity to be open to listen to your partner's wants and needs. That does not mean you have to do everything they ask, but you should never chastise the shit outside of some very obvious, like horribly bad behavior. It's not a free for all, but within the confines of, human decency, if your partner says, I want to be spanked, I want to be tied up, I want to, whatever it is within reason, you can say, listen, I think that's amazing that you trusted me enough to share that. Let me think about it. And if it's just not going to work for you, you can say, listen, it's not going to work for me, but I get it. So let's talk about what else we can do that can scratch that itch.
Absolutely. Huh. Well, I'm so glad you were here today, Paul. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks for opening this whole door for my listeners and everything. Because I really think that people are just unaware, or they're aware and they don't want to admit it.
Naive. We're naive. We're naive about the world of sex and marriage and monogamy. We want to believe of the fairy tale of the white picket fence and happily ever after, and that's a lovely concept. And if it was true, our business wouldn't be as successful as it is.
Isn't that that's true? That's facts, right?
So yeah. So
my gosh,
this is it.
Okay, so people can obviously, if they wanted to reach out to you personally, that doesn't happen, but they can, right? You don't take questions and.
Well, you could. My team would love that. Yeah, you could always you can find me. I'm out there. I'm on the socials.
You know what I found really interesting is that you don't. Obviously, I was saying this to my boyfriend before. I'm like, God, they only have 6,000 followers on Instagram. He's like, Jennifer, duh. And I was like,
yeah, right. See, that's the thing. You're not going to follow Ashley Madison on the socials because then your partner's going to be like, wait a minute.
I'm going to follow you.
Hold on. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And listen, if you want to, encourage it, but I totally understand why you might not.
I mean, it's just it's just crazy to me, because in my head, I'm thinking it all makes sense. But then I'm like, I just have to wrap my brain around. And it's true. Don't yuck someone else's yum.
Never.
Love it. Thank you, Paul. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate you. Come back and we'll talk more.
Always.
Okay, cool. Have a great day.
Bye.
Everybody, I'm going to finish later.